Biodiversity is the variety of all living organisms on Earth and is broken down into ecosystem diversity, species diversity, and genetic diversity. Biodiversity is essential for the balanced function of all living ecosystems, as each organism is dependent on one another for survival. Higher levels of biodiversity leads to a healthier, more resilient ecosystem, which is why ecosystems with lower levels of biodiversity are more vulnerable because there are less connections between organisms. Coral reefs are found in the tropical and subtropical waters of the ocean, in areas that are reachable by the sunlight. Reefs are highly diverse and complex aquatic ecosystems built by tiny coral polyps that cluster in groups to form a reef habitat, providing food and shelter for approximately 1/4 of all marine species, whilst only covering less than 2% of the ocean bottom. Coral reefs are known as the rainforests of the sea and have the highest levels of biodiversity on Earth. Coral reefs have a dense and complex food web, rich with interconnecting predator-prey relationships, with all species heavily dependent on one another and the environment. As Helen Sylvester of Oxford Science stated, an ecosystem needs to be able to maintain a balance so that all species can exist at their optimum population size. Therefore, producers of the reef are all found in abundant numbers, supporting the many herbivorous and omnivorous consumers, which are all dependent on this abundant food source. Further up the food web, predator numbers decrease due to the competition for prey, and the ecosystem cannot support more animals than it can feed. The small fraction of apex predators reinforce this balance, as sharks, for example, control the populations of other organisms. Without sharks, it would have a flow-on effect on the rest of the food web, leading to the increased competition between the sharks' prey for food, putting too much strain on the producers, unbalancing all organism population sizes. Decomposers such as bacteria and fungi are also important as they recycle dead matter, breaking down essential nutrients and minerals and putting it back into the food web to maintain balance. These biotic factors of the reef interact with its abiotic components, which are equally important, including sunlight, temperature, salinity, water, light penetration, tides, and gases in the water. The carbon cycle has a profound influence on this ecosystem, with its producers depending on the carbon and sunlight for photosynthesis. In this process, aquatic plants produce energy and exchange carbon dioxide in the water for the oxygen, which is needed for many marine species to live. Organism spawning also heavily depends on water temperature and the tidal and lunar cycles for the reproduction of many species. The dense, interconnecting web of biodiversity gives ecosystems the ability and resilience to recover from external change. In cases of natural disasters, reefs are able to recover from damage and restore balance to the reef when given time and are left alone by humans. Human impacts is a major cause of coral bleaching. Global warming and pollution has increased water temperature by approximately 0.1 degrees Celsius. This small change has caused coral to become stressed. The symbiotic algae living in their tissues is then expelled, leaving the coral vulnerable and eventually killing it. The coral itself allows the entire interconnecting net of biodiversity to be woven, because without coral, the ecosystem wouldn't exist, undermining the survival of all other organisms on the reef. However, this can be prevented by reducing human impact. Coral bleaching can be reduced by decreasing the amount of global carbon emissions emitted into the atmosphere and stopping deforestation of the globe's carbon sinks, which will reduce global warming and pollution. With time and space, coral reefs can eventually recover from coral bleaching and restore balance with the help of biodiversity. Biodiversity is essential for the sustainability of the reef ecosystem, as each organism heavily depends on one another for survival and stability of their ecosystem. When one strand of the ecosystem's web is harmed, it can recover from this change by its variety of all living organisms and the dense interconnecting relationships of biodiversity to find balance again. Without biodiversity, life wouldn't exist, as ecosystems wouldn't be able to recover from change.
The tundra biome is known for icy temperatures and upon original inspection seems to have a limited purpose for existence. But what if I told you that not only is the tundra as important as other biomes, but possibly the most important of all? By the end of this video, I challenge you to erase what ideas you have of the biome and see the tundra as the vital part of the world that it is. A key trait in the tundra's ecosystem is the ability for the native plants to be able to survive off little to no sunlight. These plants provide the base for the entire ecosystem to survive. From here, herbivores such as the picas, Arctic hares, and more eat the plants and are then consumed by carnivores such as polar bears, snowy owls, and wolves. As I stated earlier, the key to the chain are the plants. However, air and ground pollution can drastically decrease the growth of plants, decreasing the population of all species in the chain. But a key, underrated component of the web is what happens to the organisms that die. Creatures like insects feed on the dead matter, breaking it into smaller pieces for bacteria to break completely down. This releases important nutrients into the soil, which can fertilize the ground, which plants grow out of. Thus, the cycle begins again. A great example of the importance of biodiversity to maintain future sustainability of the ecosystem. One of the biome's most important role is the carbon cycle. The tundra biome has permafrost, which is matter that has been held beneath the ground in permanent reservoirs. Due to the fact that permafrost has been frozen for a long time, it holds lots of minerals, especially carbon dioxide. The natural process of permafrost involves a slow, gradual release of chemicals into the atmosphere. However, at the increased rate of climate change, this process releases chemicals much faster, and the increase of carbon dioxide can contribute to a vicious cycle of increasing temperatures. In order to survive, the tundra must be able to recover from disaster. A major event that perfectly illustrates the biome's incredible ability to recover from such an event was the eruption of Nova Rupta in the Alaskan Peninsula. Remarkably, no humans were killed during the explosion, but the effect to the other life in the area was astronomical. The eruption spewed thousands of tons of ash into the atmosphere, where it eventually settled in the ocean and land, where it killed almost all wildlife in the region. However, the area did manage to become habitable again, and today is thriving as if it never happened. The systems and importance of the tundra can be easily shown by taking a look at one of the largest tundras in the world, Alaska. The area consists of a delicate ecosystem that is unique due to its large number of species that are not necessarily local, but migrate from other places. This is especially true along the coastline of Alaska, where many ocean species such as fish, whales, and more come to mate. This niche of migration plays a massive role in feeding local species who rely on migrating animals as a food source. However, due to rising temperatures and waters, there are dwindling numbers of migrating species, creating a ripple effect that can affect the entire state. Biodiversity plays a key role in the maintenance of homeostasis throughout the tundra biome. The variation of species makes up not only their relationship to each other, but to us humans and the overarching environment. So why, despite all the scientific findings, is this fascinating and important biome being ignored? This simple question, unfortunately, has no simple answer. We must all come together to protect the tundra before there is no going back.
There are so many extraordinary things that occur in our environment today. Many of them are happening right now and we don't even know it, and without them our world would fall apart. Biodiversity is one of these amazing factors. Biodiversity is the variety of living species in an ecosystem that can be found in a particular place with many biotic factors. It is the most important process within the environment. The more biodiversity within an ecosystem, the healthier it is to thrive. It plays an important role to sustain the variety of life on our planet. Biodiversity is created in 3 levels that work together to create life on Earth: species diversity, genetics diversity, and ecosystem diversity.
These roles are carried out by different biotic factors in an ecosystem, and if they are disrupted in any way, they may not be able to conduct the usual roles, which can lead to the disturbance of an ecosystem. These biodiverse complexities also work interconnecting the Great Barrier Reef with a range of biotic and abiotic factors, such as plants, animals, and microorganisms, such as bacteria and algae. In the Great Barrier Reef, coral is home to many clownfish. The coral also provides food for the clownfish, which connects the food web in the Great Barrier Reef. Great Barrier Reef is the largest reef system in the world and is over 2,300 kilometers long. It is located on the Queensland coastline and is made up of 3,000 coral reefs. It is a part of the 7 natural wonders of the world, and there are so many animals and plants that call it home. One animal that plays an important role in the food web is the green turtle. It works in certain ways to help balance the level of food and sustainability in the reef. It carries around barnacles, algae, and other organisms which provide food for fish and shrimps. Without the turtle, many fish and shrimps in the food web would die, causing apex predators such as dugongs and humpback whales to starve, leading to the destruction of the reef's food supply. Each turtle helps the diversity of the reef's habitat and function. They are vital for the survival of the Great Barrier Reef. All biotic factors are made up of carbon. Even the ocean and the air have carbon in it, because carbon moves around constantly. This is known as the carbon cycle. Photosynthesis is a massive contributor to the carbon cycle because plants use carbon and sunlight to produce food. Carbon is also emitted by factories, and it can leave measurable effects on the Great Barrier Reef. Some abiotic factors in a reef are temperature and sunlight. These also contribute to climate change. When there are excess amounts of carbon in the air, the carbon traps the sun's heat. This makes our planet's temperature increase. When coral bleaching occurs, the coral loses its symbiotic algae, which produces food for the coral that needs to survive. This makes coral prone to diseases and kills the coral altogether. Coral can also lose its colour. Coral can survive short-term bleaching, but if it occurs again, it can lead to irreversible damage. Also, when temperatures increase, the polar ice caps melt in the north, which causes sea levels to rise. When the water rises, it increases our chances of natural disasters like floods and tropical cyclones. The Great Barrier Reef is also affected by the water run from farmlands. When it rains, the fertilizer from soil and crops runs into the water and poisons many animals and coral. This is just another threat that the reef faces. The Australian government is concerned about the future of the reef, which is why they are putting in place rules for farmers to stop fertilizing many crops, and they are letting people go and see the reef for free to raise concerns so we can protect the reef. In order to sustain a healthy environment, biodiversity needs to thrive everywhere. Species diversity helps with creating a range of habitats. Ecosystems all around the world need to be protected, and even though we are the main cause of destruction, we can also be the solution. By decreasing the amount of carbon we use, we can slowly repair our world by driving less, using less water, and wasting less food. Although it doesn't seem like much, we can start improving the quality of the planet's ecosystems. Just like David Attenborough once said, it is the range of biodiversity that we must care for, the whole thing, rather than just 1 or 2 stars. We need to start caring for the most important things in nature.
E.O. Wilson said, "Biodiversity as a whole forms a shield protecting each of the species that together compose it, ourselves included." So what is biodiversity? Biodiversity is the variety of plant and animal life in the world or in a particular biome or habitat, a high level of which is usually considered important or enticing. Biodiversity plays a major role in sustaining a biome because having a wide range of biodiversity in a biome provides the area with special ecosystem services, biological resources, and social benefits. So this video will be focusing on why biodiversity in a reef is severely important for its future sustainability. 65% of planet Earth is ocean, and around 2% of it is coral reef. A reef consists of a ridge of jagged rocks, coral, and sand just below the ocean's surface. Living and feeding off of the coral reef is the sea life. Fish, corals, lobsters, clams, and sea turtles are only a few of the thousands of creatures that rely on the reefs for their survival. Almost 1/4 of the marine life depends on reefs for food and shelter. However, reefs are slowly dying down because of climate change causing coral bleaching, losing zooxanthellae, which provide them with color and energy, and human erosion. Blue-green algae, phytoplankton, zooxanthellae, seagrass, and brown algae are all the primary producers for the food web in the coral reef. The primary consumer consists of zooplankton, corals, sponges, Atlantic blue tang, and queen conch. These primary producers supply primary consumers with food, who then provide the secondary consumers with food, who then provide the tertiary consumers with food. The kings of the coral reef, or the tertiary consumers, food chain is the white reef shark, the dugong, and the humpback whale. There is very little amounts of these species because having too many of the same species creates competition and can lead to overkilling or extinction. All factors of the food web play a very important role. If one species is extinct, it critically impacts the coral reef's food web. With climate change occurring today, air is slowly increasing in temperature, which causes the ocean surface temperature to increase in temperature as well. Climate change impacts corals and alter coral reef communities by prompting coral bleaching. This impacts corals and the many organisms that eat off of the corals and use the reef as their habitat. The carbon cycle is the process in which carbon goes from the atmosphere inside the organisms around it and then inside the earth and then back into the atmosphere. Plants and sea plants take carbon dioxide from their surroundings and use it to make food. Animals then eat the food and carbon is stored in their bodies or released as carbon dioxide through respiration. All sea plants perform photosynthesis to generate enough energy and nutrients to sustain a healthy life. In terms of carbon cycle, reefs are sites of two important processes: the organic carbon metabolism, photosynthesis and respiration, and the inorganic carbon metabolism. Reefs are slowly dying due to human impact and many other biotic and abiotic factors. Humans are just the many biotic factors that are slowly causing the reef to become endangered. Natural disasters, global warming, and oil spills are also some of the many abiotic factors that are impacting the reef immensely. These are just many of the factors that are making the reef more endangered than what it already is today. With these factors impacting the reef's sea life and health, it is affecting the reef's biodiversity significantly. With pollution in the water and humans overfishing, they both are killing the sea life magnificently. So if humans, being the threat to reefs, try to reduce the amount of coral mining, digging of canals, overfishing, pollution, and oil transport, or oil spills, I strongly believe this will help the future sustainability for the coral reef. A wide range of biodiversity in the coral reefs can create and maintain a healthy lifestyle for the life inside the biome and will also maintain the ecosystem.
Biodiversity is the variety of plant and animal life in a particular place or environment. Rainforests are tremendously rich in animal life, making them a very diverse ecosystem. They are found all around the world, but generally near the equator, or between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. Countries like South America, India, Africa, Asia and Australia all contain rainforests. Rainforests are populated with insects, amphibians, birds, mammals and many other creatures. They also contain over 170,000 of the world's 250,000 known plant species. The Borneo Rainforest is unquestionably one of the world's top biodiversity hotspots. It is located in Southeast Asia and has an area of 743,330 km squared. It contains over 8,000 species of flowering plants and trees, 221 types of terrestrial mammals and 420 species of birds. It is important to maintain the food chains and webs in an ecosystem because each living thing is part of one and has a role to play to keep the environment sustained. You can see from this food web there's a lot of competition for banana trees, nuts, fruit and leaves. The producers in the Borneo Rainforest are the native plants like bamboo, leaves and fruit. The primary and secondary consumers include snails, insects and birds. The top of the food web are the tertiary consumers like chimpanzees, monkeys and fruit bats. As humans at the top of the food chain, we rely on the primary producers and consumers to supply us with food. Without biodiversity, humans would lose their food source and the rainforest wouldn't survive. Abiotic and biotic factors have a huge influence on the rainforest diversity. The abiotic factors of an ecosystem include the temperature, precipitation, rocks, and ponds. The abiotic factors of an ecosystem are the producers, primary, secondary, and tertiary consumers, and decomposers. The biotic and abiotic factors of an ecosystem are directly related to each other. The organisms in an ecosystem rely on the right temperature to survive. If suddenly the ecosystem temperatures rose exceedingly, organisms would start to die. The role of the rainforest in the water cycle is to add water to the atmosphere during the process of transpiration. This is where plants release water from their leaves during photosynthesis. This moisture contributes to the formation of rain clouds, which release the water back into the rainforest. The rainforest also plays a key role in the carbon cycle and is a net absorber of carbon dioxide, and therefore helps protect the earth against the greenhouse effect. Unfortunately, many of the animal and plant species found in the Borneo Rainforest are becoming endangered or even extinct, mostly because of human actions. In 1950, almost all of Borneo's region was covered in forests. Since then, at least 30 to 40% of the island's rainforest have been destroyed for good. Top quality trees are being cut down for industrial and commercial use. This has demolished thousands of animal habitats and is putting more species at risk every day. In 1982 and 1997, Borneo experienced fires that brought drought into the area and destroyed over 1,000 kilometers of forest land. When left undisturbed, Borneo's forests are not usually prone to fires, but as forests are opened up by humans, they dry out, causing fires to start and deforestation to occur. The biodiversity in the Borneo rainforest is dropping rapidly. Because of the decrease in forest lands, at least one species is disappearing every day. At this rate, extinction is now 400 times faster than any time in history. Biodiversity is what keeps our planet alive. Therefore, it's extremely important that we take care of our environment for our future generations. David Suzuki once said, "I can't imagine anything more important than air, water, soil, energy, and biodiversity. These are things that keep us alive."